You want a war? You're gonna get one.
Now get the guns, the drugs, to my generation, I'll take the fall. The stakes, across the nation, and it's a sex, the gods, the fakes, the fraud, they're messing with me. Come on, come on, come on, let's get it out. Move to the music, play that fucking music. Live through my music, yeah.
Hey yo, Reliving the War episode 211, the 22nd of November 1999. We've got Raw coming from Buffalo, New York, while Nitro's in Auburn Hills, Michigan. Bret Hart is the new WCW champion. The Hitman finally won the World Heavyweight belt at WCW Mayhem. We'll hear from Bret at the very start of Nitro, but first we'll take a quick look at what happened this week on SmackDown. Triple H and D-Generation X sent a message to Vince McMahon by attacking the Stooges. They attacked Test. They started a fire in Vince's office and they seemingly pushed Shane and Stephanie down a flight of stairs. Vince ran to the backstage area, Triple H laughed as SmackDown went off the air, and when this week's episode of Raw begins, Shane McMahon announces that Vince is nowhere to be found. Shane says Vince is going to do something stupid, he's going crazy, and everyone needs to band together to find Mr. McMahon before he does something he's going to regret. The search party goes out looking for Vince while DX arrived at the arena in their limousine, and someone calls Triple H to tip him off about Vince's current mental state. DX laugh as they wonder which one of their stunts on SmackDown was the one that sent Vince over the edge. But the real question is, who's phoning Triple H and who's feeding D-Generation X this information? This week we've got a jam-up couple, Nathan and Ashley, all the way from Adelaide, Australia. The two attended local promotion World Series Wrestling, which was also Ashley's first ever show, and Nathan told me that Reliving the War was what got Ashley into wrestling in the first place, so that's awesome. First stop Adelaide, Australia, next stop WrestleMania in Las Vegas. Nathan's gonna pay for it. Thanks very much guys, and enjoy this week's episode of Reliving the War. Bret Hart comes out on Nitro for his first promo as WCW champion. He says not too long ago he was thinking of retiring for good, but now he has a mission. He wants to be the best world champion WCW's ever had. He thanks the fans for sticking by him during a rough year. He dedicates his title win to his father Stu, and Bret then says he wants to give Goldberg a title shot. Bret feels that Goldberg was screwed during their first round tournament match. The Hitman has infinite respect for Goldberg. Yeah, he sure does. And Bret says he'll give Goldberg that title match at Starrcade in December. The Outsiders appear on the entranceway and Scott's in pretty bad shape tonight. It's always bad to see this and there's no hiding it either. He looks terrible and he's speaking very slowly. Scott says he and Kev don't care about Bret Hart's way of doing things, he's too much of a do-gooder. The Outsiders took WCW from the outhouse to the penthouse, and the Outsiders do what they want when they want. Big Kev wants a tag team match, the Outsiders versus Bill Goldberg and Bret Hart. Bret says, you want it, you got it, but that match actually doesn't take place tonight. Jeff Jarrett comes in the ring to smack Bret with his guitar before telling everyone that he's the chosen one, and Double J steals the World Heavyweight Championship belt. A little later on, Bret says he'll give Jarrett a match tonight on Nitro, while Goldberg tells Bret that he'll take care of the Outsiders without the Hitman's help. Mike Tenay wonders if this is going to be a 2-on-1 match, and Goldberg says not necessarily. We have once again got a ton of backstage promos and cutaways this week as expected, so I'm going to go through a lot of them right now. Curt Hennig says he wants to say goodbye to the fans tonight in the middle of the ring, and the camera pans out to show us the maestro playing his piano. We hear this bozo tickling the ivories throughout the vast majority of backstage promos tonight. Also, there's Ken Shamrock's dirty sister, Ryan Shamrock. She's now known as Symphony. Hennig then shakes Buff Bagwell's hand. It was Bagwell who beat Curt Hennig last night at Mayhem, and Curt calls Buff the future of pro wrestling before saying goodbye. Tony Marinara's brought in Big Vito and Johnny the Bull to take care of Disco Inferno. These dudes can't wait to bust some heads, but they also forget who they're going to attack, and Tony has to remind them who Disco Inferno is. We learn here that Tony's dad's the Don of the family. These New York mobsters work for Don Mariana, and they're kinda stupid, to say the least. Chavo Guerrero tries to sell the boys some jewelry. Johnny the Bull thinks the gear may be fake, but Chavo says it's all above board. Lex Luger reveals that Elizabeth signed some sort of contract with him, and that means she has to do whatever he says. Because Liz cost him a match against Meng last night at Mayhem, Luger wants to teach his valet a lesson. So Russo agrees to put Liz in a match tonight against Meng on Nitro, and Liz says she won't do it. She locks herself in a cage to ensure Meng can't get a hold of her, and she even asks Sting for a little assistance, but the Icon's in absolutely no rush to help her out. Liz ends up giving Lex the key after a little sweet talking from the total package, but he keeps Liz locked up, and he says he'll bring the cage down to the ring later tonight, so Liz has no way of getting out of this match against the Menger. Tony Schiavone plugged the WCW Nitro cologne, smells like shit, and as for the rest of the backstage promos, we'll cover these as they happen later on. Back in the ring, the Filthy Animals lost their tag team championships when Billy Kidman saw Torrie Wilson and Eddie Guerrero together on the big screen. They weren't doing anything wrong, but Billy thought otherwise. Kidman ran to the backstage area to attack Guerrero. Creative Control pinned Conan in the middle of the ring to win the championships, and this leads to a Kidman vs Guerrero match getting booked for Nitro later tonight. Kidman says he wants Eddie to fight him like a man, and Guerrero basically says that Kidman has it all wrong and things aren't what they appear to be. New hardcore champion Norman Smiley says if you look up the word hardcore in the dictionary, you'll see a picture of his rough and tough mug. He's so hardcore that he drank milk this morning that was 2 days past its expiry date. What an absolute madman. Norman then challenges anyone in the back for a fight. Finlay comes out to beat up Norman for a bit, but there's no referee here and this isn't an official match. Instead, Norman gets knocked around the ring as the commentators talk about Finlay returning from a bad leg injury. Evan Karagias took on Perry Saturn, and two things came out of this match. An upcoming bout between Medusa and Asia after the two brawled on the outside, and Brad Armstrong showing up as a new character named Buzzkill. This all stems from Russo saying Brad's boring and he should be more like his brother, so now he's a hippie who apparently gets high on life. Yeah, this is going to make Brad a lot of money for sure. Saturn made Karagias tap out of the rings of Saturn. We'll see Medusa versus Asia a little later on. Whoop-de-doo.
By the way, I want to say hi to my one little fan out there. Hello, Smokey, my cat.
Al Snow and Mankind take on the Holly Cousins in our Raw opening match. On Nitro, we've got The Wall taking on Vampiro. Foley may have took Al to Las Vegas last week, but Hardcore Holly quickly brings Al back to reality by reminding him about his action figure. A 2-pack also existed that featured Hardcore Holly and Al Snow action figures as a single purchase, and Holly says this package has also been removed from Walmart and it's all Al's fault. Christmas is now ruined for every little Hardcore Holly fan, and Bombastic Bob says he can forgive Al decapitating innocent people, but he can't forgive Al affecting his merchandise sales. Fantastic. The match begins with Al focusing on Hardcore while Mick focuses on Crash. There's some very brief action inside the ring with Hardcore taking a hook clothesline from Al, but it's straight back to the outside where the two fight in the audience. After more brawling on the outside, Crash finds himself getting stuck between Mankind and Snow. Crash takes a few shots followed by a back elbow, and the babyfaces show off some sick double team moves that would surely make the Hardy Boys jealous. Mick makes the mistake of grabbing a steel chair while Al tries a snowplow. Hardcore dropkicks his own tag team partner to ensure his team gets a pinfall victory, but Foley attacks his opponents after the bell anyway. A match that didn't really settle down unfortunately, but still pretty entertaining. On Nitro, Oklahoma and Steve Williams come out to watch our next match. Ferrara once again provides commentary and it's the same as last week, just more cheap shots at Jim Ross. Tony Schiavone says this is the Wall's first match ever, completely forgetting he wrestled last week on Nitro in a 3-on-2 match. And Oklahoma says there's no place for Vampiro and the Misfits in WCW as the group attack the Wall on the outside. When the action gets back inside the ring, absolutely nothing of note happens. It's all punches and kicks. Even when Vampiro's on the top rope, he decides to get down after kicking Wall away. So there's absolutely zero effort here in terms of in-ring action. Vampiro does land his front spin kick, but he gets set up for a chokeslam. Berlin runs in and he hits Vampiro with a chair just as his bodyguard was about to perform his finisher, and this just creates more tension between Berlin and the Wall. Berlin slaps his bodyguard, the Wall sees red and he chases Alex up the rampway. Steve Williams then gets in the ring to beat up the Misfits, and Jerry only takes the Oklahoma Stampede. Vampiro manages to kick Dr. Death out of the ring and Oklahoma has to run over to calm Williams down. Absolute drivel right here on Monday Nitro, and I don't care if you like the Misfits or not, it was terrible. Test and Shane McMahon find Daddy Vince sitting in a car holding a baseball bat. Mr. McMahon says he's not moving, he's going to stay right where he is for now. He tells his son and future son-in-law to get in the arena and get ready for their tag team title match later on, so Shane and Test have no choice. Vince is left all alone. He waits for DX to show up in their limo, and he only goes and drives his car right into DX's vehicle. Vince rams the DX limo over and over again. He gets out and he screams, "Do you want to play the game?" while smashing the windows with his baseball bat. DX do manage to escape in the midst of Vince's little episode here, but clearly Mr. McMahon has lost it. After a commercial break, Vince tries to break into DX's locker room, but he's getting nowhere fast. Everyone's trying to calm this lunatic down, but he's gone. He's totally gone. Next, it's Curt Angle vs Mark Henry on Raw, while WCW presents Jeff Jarrett vs Bret Hart. A limousine arrives to Nitro just before our match gets underway. We'll find out who's inside later on. Double J walks to the ring wearing Bret's World Championship belt, and so the Hitman beats the hell out of Jarrett at the opening bell. The two go outside where Bret remains in control. Total annihilation from His Excellency right here. And when the two get back inside, Bret uses his very own rope to choke Jeff out before delivering his signature headbutt to the midsection. Jeff gets into the match by grazing Bret's little hitman on the top rope. We go back to the outside where Bret gets dropped on the guardrail and he takes a bump at the ring steps. It's then over to the commentary table where Jeff performs a few fist drops. And back inside the ring, Jarrett tries to pin Bret twice, but the world champ stays in it. A sleeper hold slows the match down, and when Bret breaks free, both men go down following a double clothesline. It's the Hitman who gets up first though, and Jeff takes the Russian leg sweep, the second rope elbow drop, and a backbreaker before Hart tries a superplex. This move gets stopped though, and Jarrett pulls off a diving clothesline. Those creative control jabronis come out just when Bret gets a chance to lock in a sharpshooter. Bret gets kicked out of the ring and creative control approach the champ, but then Dustin Rhodes shows up to hit Jeff with the World Heavyweight belt. Bret's a little confused when he wakes up. He doesn't even bother locking in a sharpshooter though, he just covers Jeff for the 1-2-3 and Bret gets his championship belt back. A good match here with a typical WCW ending. Patrick and Gerald were given a mission from Vince Russo. They had to find Hacksaw Jim Duggan and find out who just arrived to Nitro inside that limo. They find Hacksaw eating a delicious apple he found in the garbage, and on his way to Russo's office, Jim bumps into the maestro. He decides to play the piano for a little while, and look at the absolute state of this guy's face right here. Jim then goes to Russo's office. Vince is annoyed that Duggan took a dump in his personal toilet last week on Nitro, so Russo took a mean watery shit and he wants Duggan to clean it up using a toothbrush. Jim completes his mission using a different golden toothbrush he found in Russo's restroom. The toilet's now sparkling clean and Duggan puts the toothbrush back in its shiny gold case. On Raw, Kurt Angle says he competed in the Olympics to win a gold medal. He wanted to do this for himself and for all the American people. Some people, however, didn't pull through for the good old US of A. He's not going to mention any names though, but he's clearly talking about Mark Henry. Kurt tells the fans to cheer for him tonight and don't cheer for the man who spent the night at a strip club the night before he competed in the Olympics. And if Mark followed Angle's 3 eyes, he would have placed first and brought home a medal. This line right here makes Mark snap and he attacks Angle in the corner. Kurt takes a gorilla press slam, but he comes back with a running crossbody. Kurt then applies a cross arm breaker, but Mark gets out with a big powerbomb. We then see that guy from last week walking around with his WWF is immoral sign, and back in the ring, Kurt gets a surprisingly quick win after hitting Mark with a Northern Light suplex. Kurt celebrates like he just won another gold medal, and so the undefeated streak continues on Raw's War. On Raw next, it's Godfather vs Chris Jericho, while over on Nitro we've got Billy Kidman vs Eddie Guerrero. Just like the previous Raw match, we burned through a lot of time here with a pre-match promo. Y2J says his image is getting tarnished right now by stepping inside the ring with the Godfather, and he calls the Godfather's hoes a bunch of ugly pigs. He wants the creatures to leave the arena right now, but Godfather attacks from behind. Jericho falls victim to a big boot, and check this out. I think Godfather was supposed to be closer to the corner right here because Jericho smacked the canvas pretty hard. My. A hoe train runs straight into Y2J and Chris falls to the outside, but he uses one of Godfather's girls to act as a shield. This allows Chris to pull off a jumping clothesline, and we can see that lady right there has a really nice pair of boots. The creatures gang up on Chris and the Ayatollah gets slapped silly. This just makes Chris mad though, and when he gets back in the ring he pins Godfather after a facebuster and a lion salt. Chris Jericho scores a much needed victory this week on Monday Night Raw. Backstage, Vince McMahon is still going crazy, so the boys in blue arrive and they're gonna put Vince in jail. DX show up to cause a ruckus, and while the cops are busy with X-Pac and company, Triple H attacks a handcuffed Vince McMahon. Hunter also gets in a sneaky kick to the dick before the cops pull him away, and as Vince gets put in the cop car, he continues to shout, "I'm gonna play your game, Triple H." As Raw continues on, we see Vince getting brought to the cop shop. He complains about his handcuffs before getting booked in. It looks like we won't be seeing Vince again in the arena tonight, but we will check in on McMahon a little later on. On Nitro, Tony Schiavone announces that the powers that be fired Arn Anderson as Kidman attacks Eddie on the entranceway. Arn got involved in the Kimberly vs David Flair match last night, and so he's been kicked out of WCW, apparently. Kidman's very angry here as he attacks Eddie in the corner, and it looks like Eddie doesn't want to fight his filthy animal teammate. Eventually, he has enough and he lays in a few strikes of his own. The commentators think this could be the end of the filthy animals as Eddie dumps Kidman out of the ring with a suplex. And after the two fight on the outside for a bit, they get back in the ring where a botched leapfrog leads to Eddie headbutting Kidman right in the balls. Billy becomes more and more useless to Tori with each passing day. The Revolution run down to attack Conan as the match continues in the ring. Eventually they leave and Tori tries to tell Kidman that K-Dog's being jumped. This causes Billy to get distracted and Eddie takes advantage with an underhook belly to belly. Our match ends with a frog splash from Latino Heat and Eddie scores a pinfall win. Is Tori maybe doing all this on purpose? Is it all a coincidence that could potentially lead to a swerve, bro? The smart money says yes. Yes it is. On Raw next, it's Edge and Christian taking on the Dudley Boyz. On Nitro, it's the Elizabeth vs Meng match. Can't wait. The Raw Tag Team match was a good one. The first big move of the match was a spinning wheel kick from Edge, but Bubba replied with a Samoan drop. The Dudleys then pulled off their double team headbutt, which totally went undetected by the referee, and Devon came in with a jumping back elbow to Edge. Edge is unable to get to his corner as the Dudley Boyz tag in and out. There's nothing Christian can do as Bubba and Devon slowly but surely wear Edge down. The break comes after a miscue from the Dudleys though, and Christian comes in with a great looking top rope crossbody. We see some double team action with the Dudleys pulling off a back suplex and neckbreaker combination, but it's Edge and Christian who pick up the win following a Tower of Doom. The tag team division in the WWF is pretty good right about now, and it's only going to get better as time goes on. So Liz gets brought down to the ring while still inside her shark cage. She gets placed inside the ropes and Meng tries his best to break through that cage. Lex tried to give Meng a helping hand by giving him the key, but the plan backfires and Luger gets put in the Tongan death grip. With Lex out cold, Meng goes back to Liz and he almost breaks through the cage, so Sting shows up to attack the Menger. Meng gets put on the canvas after a few baseball bat shots. Sting then frees Miss Elizabeth and the two head back up the ramp. Is this going to be a new dynamic duo in WCW, or is it going to be another swerve, bro? The smart money says yes. Yes it is. When Meng wakes up, he challenges the Icon to a match, so a little later on, we're going to see Sting versus Meng. The Rock's going to face Bossman and Albert later alongside a mystery partner. He walks past Mick Foley and Al Snow in the backstage area, and he's annoyed that Foley tried to greet him after what Mick did to him in their last match. Remember, Foley stood on the ring steps and he allowed Rock to get destroyed by the Holly Cousins. Rock sets the record straight when he says he didn't burn Foley's book a month or two ago, and he actually recalls the chapter in which Foley writes about his match against Rock at the 1999 Royal Rumble. And as for Al Snow, well, Al gets told to take head to the makeup lady, get it looking all nice and pretty, and Snow should turn head sideways and shove it up his candy ass. Mick seems happy that The Rock actually read his book, but judging by what Rock said, Mankind won't be his tag team partner later tonight. Next week, we're all invited to the wedding of Stephanie McMahon and Big Andy. My goodness. Stephanie picked out her bridesmaid dresses before going home for her bridal shower, and that dirtbag Mae Young gave Stephanie the best present of all. Linda took it away to use on Vince later on. Big Linda then says she chartered a plane for Stephanie and her friends. They are going to Las Vegas for a bachelorette party, which is kinda weird seeing as Al Snow and Mankind just came back from Vegas. And then, for absolutely no reason at all, the fabulous Moolah kicks Mae Young into a cake. What a mean-spirited old bastard. On Nitro, we get a look inside the limousine, but we can't work out who's sitting inside. Creative Control set off an alarm and the cops came over before they could find out who's inside. But again, be patient, we'll all find out soon enough. Next on Raw, we've got X-Pac versus Jeff Hardy. On Nitro, it's Lash LeRoux versus Disco Inferno. Moments into the Nitro match, Tony Marinara walked down the ringside along with Big Vito and Johnny the Bull. Johnny trips up the raging Cajun and Lash falls to the mat, and Disco's a bit surprised that these New York mobsters aren't attacking him straight away. Maybe they just want to make Disco sweat a little. Unfortunately for Disco, he ended up losing the match when Lash pulled off his whiplash finisher, and then the boys brought a body bag into the ring before throwing LeRoux and the referee over the top rope. Johnny and Vito lay the boots in, and it looks like Disco's going to get dumped in a shallow grave after Nitro. But then LeRoux comes to Disco's aid, and the Mamalukes get taken out with a few chair shots. Tony Marinara tries to jump on Disco's back, but Lash puts him in a sleeper, and now Disco's really done for. He and Lash put Tony in a body bag, and the Inferno instantly regrets what he just done. The pint-sized Tony Marinara is going to be super mad now, and Disco better watch his back. Capiche? Oh yeah, Spice and Tygress then had a garbage match, and I'm guessing Russo just wanted to see Spice in a schoolgirl outfit. I seriously wouldn't put it past them. This one ended when Nitro Girl Sky, better known by her real name, Stacy Keibler, blindsided Spice with a laughable shot with a loaded handbag. It wasn't great, was it? On SmackDown this past week, X-Pac helped the New Age Outlaws defeat the Hardy Boys. So Jeff wants revenge tonight on Raw, and this one did have potential. X-Pac misses a standing Bronco Buster because he just never learns. Jeff answers with a head scissor takedown followed by an Arabian press moonsault. Pac counters a Hurricane Rana with a powerbomb. The Hardy Boy then feels the torture of an X-Pac chinlock, an extremely violent move right here. Jeff does break free though, and X-Pac takes a dropkick. Waltman almost takes his opponent's head off with a spinning back kick, and the match falls apart due to some really bad timing. Jeff gets put in position for the Bronco Buster, but Matt gets on the apron way too early, along with Terry on the other side of the ring. Pac has to knock Matt off the apron. He sets up the Bronco Buster again. Waltman then hits his move, and you can see Waltman waving for Matt to get in the ring. It all looked really bad, and it's a shame too because everything up until this point was spot on. Anyway, Matt gets in for his planned neckbreaker spot. Jeff hits the Swanton bomb, Road Dogg runs down to break up the cover, and the referee gets distracted. This allows Billy Gunn to come in, and he throws Jeff in the air for an X Factor, and X-Pac wins via pinfall. After the bout, Billy Gunn not only delivered a jackhammer to Jeff Hardy, but he also tried to cop a field from Terry Runnels. The cameras missed this, but the commentators sure didn't. The Big Show defends his WWF Championship against Kane next on Raw. On Nitro, Curt Hennig comes out to say his goodbyes. So the former Mr. Perfect makes his entrance, and the first person he goes to is Bobby Heenan. He gives Heenan a hug before stepping inside the ropes, and Curt struggles to get the words out. He begins his promo and he's about to say goodbye, but he just can't do it. So the fans give him a standing ovation, and he decides to leave the ring for the very last time. What do you guys think? Is Curt Hennig really done? Is he going to reappear once again in the future? Could this possibly be a giant swerve, bro? The smart money says yes it is. Big Show issued an open challenge tonight, and it got answered by the Big Red Machine. What's concerning here is the fact that for the last 2 weeks, the WWF title's been defended in the middle of Raw instead of in the main event. Kinda shows us what the company really thought of the Big Show, maybe. You could hear Show say sorry after delivering this power slam here. I thought it looked good, but maybe he put Kane on the mat in a very awkward way or something. He really should have said sorry for this powerbomb that caused Kane to land right on his ass, but never mind that. Here's Big Viscera looking a little Tory in his life. Tori has to run away from this creep as Kane and Show try to chokeslam each other. In the end though, getting laid's way more important to Kane than the WWF Championship, so he goes out to save his girlfriend, and the referee throws the match out. Viscera gets put in the ring where the Big Show delivers a big body slam. Some impressive stuff right here. And that's how this week's WWF Championship match came to an end. 2 duds in a row for the Big Show, but to be fair, the matches were scripted kinda poorly. Backstage, Shane phones his dad and he tells him that Jerry McDevitt, Vince's lawyer who constantly gets him out of trouble, is en route to the police station. Vince wants Shane to deliver some sort of message, and Shane says he'll be more than happy to do his father's bidding. Triple H cuts a promo next on Raw, while on Nitro we find out who's inside the mysterious limousine. Hunter says it should now be very clear to everyone who ran over Stone Cold at Survivor Series. Vince McMahon isn't afraid to recklessly drive a car and try to hurt people, so Hunter did what he had to do and he sent Vince to jail. It was Hunter who pressed charges. Triple H says it's funny how Vince was making fun of DX possibly going to jail last week, but now it's McMahon who's going to find out what doggy style's all about. Low hanging fruit right there, mate. And Triple H then repeats a challenge he laid out on SmackDown this past week. He wants McMahon at WWF Armageddon. One-on-one, no repercussions. This can all get settled at the next WWF pay-per-view, and Vince should think about this challenge while his cellmate lies on top of him whispering sweet nothings in his ear. My God. Thankfully, at that very moment, Shane McMahon walks out. Shane says Vince has a very special message for Triple H straight from prison, and it goes like this. The chairman can't wait to get his hands on Hunter at Armageddon. Vince is going to rip Triple H limb from limb at the pay-per-view, so the match is official. Tonight, Vince has ordered Triple H to compete in a main event match. Hunter has to face both members of the Acolytes tonight on Raw, and to get some early payback, Triple H lures Shane into the ring for a DX ambush. McMahon Jr. fell for this way too easily. Shane does get some backup though. Tess, the Stooges, the Hardy Boys and the Acolytes all run down to get a piece of D-Generation X, and in the middle of the fight, Billy Gunn hurts his knee. We see him getting medical attention after a commercial break, so it looks like tonight's tag team match is not going to happen. Over on Nitro, we hear the familiar sound of bagpipes as Roddy Piper makes his 289th return to World Championship Wrestling, and Piper's here to rip into the powers that be. He says WCW and Nitro don't need any riders, which is just flat out ridiculous, but what I think he meant to say was WCW doesn't need Russo or Ed Ferrara. Piper says the young boys told him the only time you see these riders is in the shower. They make storylines based around sex because they can't get any in real life. And before Roddy can say any more, his microphone gets cut off. Tony Schiavone confirms that the powers that be are behind this, so Piper storms to the backstage area and he finds some poor schmuck who can bring him to Russo's office. Roddy barges in and he calls Russo a, and I quote, 5:30 in the morning drag queen. Piper can't believe that Russo's the one everyone's afraid of in the locker room. Russo's a figment of his own imagination, which is quite the paradox, I must say, but Roddy Piper's a legend and Russo isn't going to treat the hot rod like dirt. Russo says Piper needs a reality check. He's down to one hip, he's pushing 50. In Russo's word, Roddy Piper's done, so Piper needs to leave and join Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan in the retirement home. Piper says he has a Time Warner contract, he'll sue Russo if he's not allowed to show up on TV. So Vince throws a referee shirt at Roddy while telling him he's got a new job. He's now a lowly referee, and if Piper breaches his contract, it'll be Russo who brings Roddy to court. Piper accepts his new role. He says yes sir to Vince Russo, and he heads back to his limousine while saying yes sir over and over again. The Hot Rod says he will be a referee before getting back in his limousine, and I don't know guys, what do you think? Will Piper stay in his lane, or is this going to be one big giant swerve, bro? The smart money says yes it is. Billy Boy Goldberg's having a word with someone backstage. This must be his tag team partner for tonight, but we don't know who it is. Will Goldberg have a partner, or will this be one big yeah, forget about it. Val Venis and the British Bulldog tag up against Too Cool next on Raw. On Nitro, it's Buff Bagwell versus Booker T plus Asia versus Medusa. During Too Cool's entrance, Jim Ross read a script that was obviously prepared by Vince McMahon. The PTC, or the Parents Television Council, had written to WWF sponsors about the content they were showing on their television shows. It wasn't until SmackDown began airing on network television that the PTC took notice, apparently. JR, or rather Vince McMahon, wants WWF fans to write to the company's sponsors to tell them how much of a good job WWF's doing. So I guess this is a classic case of weaponizing your fan base. Still, I agree with the WWF sentiment right here. If you don't want your kids watching Raw's War, then don't let them watch it. The WWF aren't babysitters, and the PTC aren't judge, jury, and executioner when it comes to what can be put on TV and what can't. Anyway, the team of Bulldog and Val Venis were doing quite well. They even held hands for a double kick, which was awfully nice. When Bulldog scooped Scotty up for the power slam though, he accidentally whacked Venis off the apron. This made Val pull the referee out when Bulldog went for the cover, and Val left his partner to take a beating from Too Cool. The Main Street Posse then run down to beat up Too Cool, and here you go.
Have you ever had sex? I haven't felt great. It felt so good when I did it with my penis. A girl let me do it. It literally just happened. Having sex can make a nice man out the meanest. Oh, hey.
The posse run down to beat up Too Cool, but then Rikishi Fatu makes his WWF return, and he's looking bigger around the butt area. Last time we saw Rikishi was when he was portraying the Sultan character, but he's got a brand new look and he wipes out the posse in no time at all. After the ring gets cleared out, Too Cool begin dancing and Rikishi joins in. This dance routine right here would become one of the more memorable things of the Attitude Era, but this is the first time it ever happened. Too Cool has become a trio, so welcome back Daddy Uso. Right, Booker T versus Buff Bagwell. I looked this up and this will be the 8th match we've watched where these two have shared a ring together, not including World War Battle Royals. I couldn't care less what happened really, but for those who may be curious, Creative Control came out to watch the match. These guys have issues with Buff and Booker, so there's going to be interference. Booker has to knock one of the tag champions off the apron and this allows Bagwell to hit the blockbuster. Creative Control then get in the ring to cause a DQ finish and Curt Hennig shows up for some strange reason. He gets in Creative Control's faces, we think he's going to attack either Patrick or Gerald, but he turns his attention to Buff Bagwell and Buff Daddy takes the perfect plex. It was a ruse, it was a big scam. Curt Hennig is now with the powers that be and yeah, there you go. Curt gets out of the ring before the lights go out. Midnight appears and she delivers a rough DDT to Patrick. Gerald takes an X kick from Booker T and okay, we need an explanation at this point. We still know nothing about Midnight or why she's helping Booker T. Russo welcomes Curt to the family backstage. Curt says 24 hours ago he hated Vince, but he's happy to be part of the group. And Russo has an old saying for Curt that he feels is quite apropos. If you can't beat them, join them. Elsewhere, Miss Elizabeth thanks Sting for helping her out earlier on, and she says if there's anything she can do to help him, she'd be more than happy to offer her services, but Sting isn't buying it. He tells Liz to beat it before we head back to the ring for the Asia vs Medusa match. These two scrapped on the outside at the opening bell, and when they got in the ring, Asia clamped down on Medusa's neck. Medusa fired back with an electric chair drop followed by a middle rope dropkick, but she went to the top one too many times and Asia took advantage. Asia applied a head scissor submission and Medusa ended up topping out at the 2-minute and 20-second mark. We have had 10 matches on Nitro tonight and only one so far has been longer than 4 minutes. That was Bret Hart versus Jeff Jarrett. The Raw Tag Team title match was called off and instead Test wrestled Road Dogg in a one-on-one match. Shane McMahon decided to referee this bout in an effort to stack the odds against Road Dogg, and in the end Shane blocked a Dancy Punch which allowed Test to score a pinfall win. That right there is just flat out cheating and Road Dogg didn't deserve it. Meanwhile, on Nitro, Russo tells Juventud Guerrera that his work visa expired, but that doesn't matter. Juvi has a surprise for Mr. Russo, a nice bottle of the finest tequila straight from Mexico. Russo takes a swig, he spits it back in Juvi's face while saying it tastes like horse piss. How does Russo know what horse piss tastes like? And Russo sends Creative Control to fetch his toothbrush. That toothbrush that's in his private restroom inside a gold case. Uh-oh. On Raw, it's The Rock and his mystery partner versus Bossman and Albert. On Nitro, we've got Chris Benoit versus Dean Malenko and Meng versus Sting. So the Benoit versus Malenko match this week is a flag match. Pole match, bro. Only Dean Malenko said before the match he wants to get the Canadian flag so he can set it on fire. Does this mean Benoit's also trying to get the Canadian flag, or is he going to try to get the American flag? I'm seriously confused. Why didn't they just put the maple leaf up there and have one flag? Anyway, it's a 3.5 minute match, so no need to get picky about it. We'll all forget it happened next week, I'm sure. Dean does indeed try to get the maple leaf, while Chris doesn't make any attempts to grab either flag. Instead, he grabs the gasoline can Dean Malenko brought to the ring, and it looks like he's about to set his old friend on fire. But Dean wakes up and he ends the match with this drop toe hold right here. It looked pretty painful. Dean grabs the Canadian flag, the referee calls for the bell, Dean uses the flag to beat Benoit up, and the Revolution get in the ring to witness the burning of the maple leaf. Saturn also grabs the American flag, and it looks like the Revolution are going to set fire to Old Glory too. I mean, nothing makes sense anymore, so yeah, have at it, you absolute lunatics. But never fear, Patriots, because Bret Hart runs down to save the day. The Revolution get taken out, the flags don't get set ablaze live on Nitro, and it all ends with Bret waving the stars and stripes while Benoit waves the maple leaf. The Hitman loves America again, it seems. Meng then came out for his match against the Stinger, and you can guess who interfered in this one. Miss Elizabeth came down to show her support for Sting, even though the Stinger told her he didn't want her anywhere near him. And Liz even tried to mace Meng, but Sting stopped her from doing so. Lex then came out to confront Liz, and Sting intervenes. This allows Meng to apply the Tongan death grip, and Sting loses the match via pinfall. I'm sure many people would consider this an upset, but you, the wrestling connoisseur and jam-up guy that you are, you know how much of a badass Meng truly is. In reality, Sting was always going to lose this one whether Lex showed up or not. On Raw, The Rock announces his tag team partner. It's the people. The people are the only partners Rock's ever needed, but that statement just isn't true when you get thrown out of the ring and you get a chair smashed across your head. Even though Rock started off well, he's already in a lot of trouble. Mick Foley and Al Snow were watching the match backstage, and Mick decided to come out and stand in as Rock's real tag team partner. The Rock and Sock connection are back, and after Rock pulls off a DDT, he tags Mick in. Foley cleans house, the crowd goes nuts, Albert takes the double arm DDT while his partner takes Mr. Socko. The Rock then delivers a rock bottom to Albert followed by the People's Elbow, and the Rock and Sock connection win via pinfall. Hopefully this doesn't make Al Snow feel a little jealous. We then see Vince McMahon getting released from jail just before our Raw main event. He has about 8 minutes to make it back to Raw, so he better hurry up. The maestro's still playing his piano backstage and someone needs to put a stop to it. So here comes David Flair screaming "make it stop" while swinging his crowbar like a lunatic. The beautiful piano gets wrecked as David's mental state continues to deteriorate. And you see this right here, this is exactly how I act when watching David's matches. Triple H must face the Acolytes in our Raw main event. On Nitro, it's the Outsiders versus Goldberg and a mystery opponent. A night of mystery on Reliving the War. Goldberg makes sure his partner's ready to go before making his entrance. The Outsiders are already in the ring. The camera pans out and it's Sid Vicious, the same man Goldberg destroyed last night at WCW Mayhem. For me, this turnaround's really too quick, but still, what a tag team, Sid and Bill Goldberg. The Outsiders have no chance, plus Scott Hall's drunk as a skunk. We start with Goldberg and Scott. The bad guy throws his toothpick at Sid, so Goldberg tags the big man in and Scott now has a big problem. Sid shoves the bad guy into the corner twice and yeah, Scott still looks really rough. This is probably pretty dangerous, but to ensure nothing goes wrong, Scott doesn't perform any big moves in this match. No fallaway slam, no choke slam, and no outsider's edge. A poke to the eye gives the Outsiders an advantage. Big Nash comes in and he keeps Sid at bay with a few shots. Sid comes back with a big boot that almost takes Kev's head off, and Goldberg comes in for a double underhook suplex. Nash falls on his ass after taking a punch from Billy Boy, but he still manages to tag out after throwing Bill into the corner. Scott tries to body slam Goldberg, but that doesn't work out, so Bill fires back with a power slam. We then see typical Outsiders offense with Nash attacking Goldberg from the apron, and from here Goldberg stays on the back foot while building up to the hot tag. Scott gets Goldberg in a front chancery, Goldberg tags in Sid but the referee doesn't see it, so Goldberg takes matters into his own hands and he wipes out Hall and Nash with a double clothesline. Goldberg then falls out of the ring and Sid, for some reason, is allowed to come in and take over as the legal man. If there's one WCW match type where the rules were seriously loosened up, it was definitely tag team matches. Anyway, the end of the match was clean, but it kinda sucked. Scott takes a chokeslam before Sid goes after Nash. Paul then took a spear from Goldberg before Sid signaled for the powerbomb. Scott takes the move, but Nash breaks the cover with an elbow drop. Scott just rolls over Sid for the pinfall win, and that's it. I mean, are you being serious right now? Nitro ends with security running down to stop Nash and Goldberg fighting each other. It's not like they just had 5 minutes or so to fight as much as they wanted, but again at this point, who cares? The Raw main event was a weird one. If anyone from D-Generation X showed up, they'd get suspended for 30 days, so Hunter got no help at all here. There's not a lot to say, unfortunately. Hunter gets beaten up in the ring, he gets beaten up at the commentary table, the three go into the audience where the Acolytes continue to wreck their opponent, and it's back to the ringside area for even more punishment. Hunter tries to run away, but Bradshaw follows him up the ramp, and after a body slam on the steel floor, it's back through the audience. You know, if you're a Triple H detractor, or if you just want to see him get beaten up for a while, then this is the match for you. The match ends with Triple H taking a few shots with the ring steps. He then manages to get out of harm's way when Bradshaw accidentally hits his partner with a clothesline from hell, and Triple H uses a steel chair on the Big Texan. Hunter then heads back up the ramp while accepting this one as a loss, but Vince McMahon appears behind him with a chair. Vince hits Hunter before throwing him off the top of the stage, and Raw ends with McMahon pulling this face right here. McMahon's still a little unstable it seems, but well, that's nothing new now, is it? Raw wins Reliving the War this week. The story of McMahon going to prison and coming back was fairly entertaining, and the matches on Raw had more time to settle down. Nitro again was just one thing after another, with the main portion of matches averaging around 2 minutes. And it now feels like I'm not getting to see the wrestlers I want to see perform, even though they're entering the ring to compete in matches. Nitro currently devalues the superstars who appear on TV, and that's just not good at all. Raw's on 114 points, while Nitro's got 76. In the TV ratings, Raw dropped to a 5.5, while Nitro went up to a 3.4. Next week on Raw, we've got the wedding of the century. Test and Stephanie tie the knot, and I can't think of a single thing that could go wrong. The Dudley boys get well acquainted with the acolytes during a card game, and we've got a big 6-man tag with Kane and the Rock and Sock Connection taking on D-Generation X. On Nitro, the Outsiders disrespect WCW by throwing a championship belt in the trash. Jushin Liger defends the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title in a controversial match against Eddie Guerrero, and Bret Hart has the biggest challenge of his life when he faces Meng one-on-one. Thanks for watching, guys. I know Nitro's a bit hectic right now, but again, there's only a few weeks before it goes back to 2 hours and things do level out a bit. It's still a rough show, but it's nowhere near as frantic. I'll see you all next week, and please take care.